Welcome to the Deep Dive. In this show, we take the sources you send us, all the reports, the files, the local histories, and we try to distill the absolute core of the story.
And today's story is, it's a particularly strange one.
It really is. We are venturing into a place where the impossible didn't just happen. It sort of became legally binding. We're talking about Ulthar.
A small coastal village in Kingsport, Massachusetts. Seems quaint on the surface. Fog-shrouded, cobbled streets.
Exactly. But for about 2 weeks, between October 28th and November 9th, 2025, that village was the stage for something biblical almost.
It's this incredible saga. It starts with a mass disappearance, and then you have this gruesome discovery of really decades of atrocities.
And it ends with an act of, well, what the town considered retribution. An act that completely challenges our definition of cause and effect, cause of death, everything.
And what really stands out here, the reason we're diving into this, is how a genuine modern criminal investigation was just completely swallowed by local mythology.
Yeah, subsumed.
It was. This isn't just a spooky campfire tale you're about to hear. This is a deep dive into the specific documented point where a centuries-old local bylaw, an actual piece of legislation, went head-to-head with modern law.
And the bylaw won.
Bylaw won, unequivocally.
And that, I think, is the central paradox we have to unpack today. Ulthar's ordinance, which dated back centuries, was simple. No harm to cats in Ulthar.
Seems straightforward enough. Quaint, even.
Right, a quirky local rule. But how did this seemingly unenforceable thing suddenly become the trigger point for a modern deadly crime? It's like the law wasn't just a rule. It was a dormant promise, a covenant almost, just waiting for someone to finally break it.
And to understand the sheer intensity of the outcome, we have to start at the beginning. We have to start with the transgression itself.
Okay, let's do that. Let's begin with the facts as we have them. Phase 1, the vanishing and the whispers. This kicks off on October 28th, 2025.
And the key thing to understand is the suddenness of it. This wasn't a few cats going missing over a month. This was a void.
A void is the perfect word. Over 50 cats. And we're not just talking about strays. We have reports of Mrs. Atwood's pedigreed Siamese, the pride of the town, feral cats that had lived by the docks for a decade.
Yeah.
Everything.
Gone in 48 hours. From these little fog-shrouded cobbled lanes.
The sources described the silence. Milk bowls left full on porches. Scratching posts completely untouched. It was an eerie, unnatural quiet.
The town itself, it's structurally unchanged since the 1700s, right? It's a place that runs on tradition, on sound, on the rhythm of life. And suddenly a huge part of that rhythm was just gone.
One of the fishermen, Elias Ward, he's quoted in the local paper, he said the quiet was suffocating. He said the entire village felt watched.
Watched by an unseen presence. And in a town like Ulthar, that feeling, that means something. It's not just paranoia.
And this is where the history becomes so critical, especially that unique local bylaw. We have to talk about that.
We do. Our sources, they trace this specific rule, the one prohibiting harm to cats, all the way back to a 1793 town charter.
1793, so this is as old as the town itself, practically.
It is. And local tradition, the folklore, links it to a group of, well, the texts call them gypsy wanderers who passed through the area.
Right.
And they supposedly left behind these tales of vengeful, animalistic gods, beings that would protect their own.
Yeah.
So the bylaw wasn't just about being kind to animals.
It was protection racket, basically.
It was an early form of protection enshrined in law. Don't mess with the cats because you don't know who they answer to. That was the foundational belief of Ulthar.
So when the cats vanish, the town doesn't just think, oh, maybe a coyote. They think the covenant has been broken.
Exactly. But the police, of course, they have to follow procedure.
Of course. And the initial police work, it hit a brick wall.
Yeah.
Immediately.
Completely. Harlan Fisk from Essex County Animal Control, his report is fascinating. He searched everywhere.
Right.
The woods, the shoreline, the back alleys.
And found.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. No fur tufts, no paw prints that would indicate a struggle, no signs of predation from a larger animal. Nothing.
He was actually the first official to put a name to it. He called the synchronicity of it all unsettling.
Because it defied rational patterns. 50 animals don't just coordinate their own disappearance without a trace. It doesn't happen.
So with the investigation going nowhere, the locals, they're forced to fall back on what they already know, or what they think they know.
On established suspicion. And that suspicion, it focused like a laser on one person.
Menes Attal.
A man is at Tal, 82 years old, a reclusive former merchant seaman, lived in this old rundown farmhouse on the edge of town.
And he already had a reputation, didn't he? The sources say he was known for his unkind ways with whiskers.
That's the euphemism they use,
Yeah.
yes. He was the town pariah when it came to animals. People already shunned him. So when 50 cats disappear, he's the first and only person they think of.
And that local suspicion, which was probably just whispers at first, it gets amplified massively.
Oh, absolutely. Social media just erupted.
Yeah.
The hashtag Ulthar Revenge started trending locally almost immediately.
But it was one user in particular who provided this really crucial link, a tangible connection between what was happening now and the town's past.
Right. A user going by the handle at Siwichlina, she posted a photo of a 19th century broadsheet, a public notice.
And what did it say?
It was a warning. It explicitly warned the townsfolk against harming kittens, quote, lest they invoke the wrath of the stars.
The wrath of the stars.
The same language from the old myths. So suddenly the town wasn't just dealing with a mystery. They felt like they were literally reading a 200-year-old script for the horror that was unfolding around them.
That is incredibly chilling. The idea that this was foretold.
It sets the stage for everything that comes next.
It does. It sets the stage for the atrocity and the arrest. The whole narrative shifts here around November 4th. It goes from a strange mystery to a truly horrific crime scene.
And the breakthrough, the thing that finally gets the police moving, it doesn't come from forensics or detective work. It comes from a source that is, well, it's steeped in that same local folklore.
An anonymous tip.
An anonymous tip, yes. But it's widely credited in the local reports to a young boy named Nar.
And who was he?
He's described as a Roma-descended orphan, sort of an outsider himself, but one who was deeply connected to the town's more mystical side, the old ways.
And what was in his tip?
Nar claimed he was having visions of black wings over the farmhouse.
Black wings.
Which is, it's chillingly specific.
Right.
It echoed the exact details of Ulthar's ancient founding curse myth. It wasn't just a vague feeling, it was a specific prophesied image.
So he gave the police not just a location, but a reason rooted in the town's deepest fears.
Precisely. And that was enough. That tip led directly to the sheriff's raid on the Adel farmhouse.
And what they found there, the reports are hard to read.
They are. It wasn't just a case of animal hoarding. The deputies found a chamber of pure, meticulous horror in the attic.
Behind false walls.
Behind false walls, yeah.
Right.
Wrapped carefully in old sailcloth, they found dozens of desiccated cat corpses. The official count was somewhere between 50 and 60.
And these weren't the recently missing cats.
No, that's the crucial detail. These were a collection, a gallery. Some were recent, but many were decades old.
The Essex County Crime Lab findings. This is where it gets really important for understanding the depth of what Ethel was doing, his obsession.
It is. The forensic evidence showed the bodies ranged from fresh to, like I said, decades old. They were mummified, preserved in these poses of agony.
And the cause of death.
The lab report uses the term unnatural desiccation.
What does that even mean?
It suggests ritualistic exsanguination, bloodletting. He wasn't just killing them. He was performing some kind of ritual. This was a purposeful, prolonged, obsessive violation of Ulthar's one sacred rule.
For decades.
For decades. In secret.
And they found proof that it was him, that it was intentional.
Oh, yes. His own records confirmed it. From his old sea chest, the deputies seized this tattered journal, a captain's log of a sort.
And his entries?
They were chillingly methodical. He chronicled his acts over time like he was logging cargo. Things like the seventh thief silence.
The seventh thief?
Yeah.
Like he saw them as intruders.
And another one. No more midnight serenades. It reads like this sailor's log of vengeance against a perceived enemy. It was a war he was waging.
So, case closed, right?
Yeah.
They have the guy, they have the evidence, they have the confession in his own handwriting.
Well, that's what's so fascinating, because even with all of this concrete evidence of Atel's guilt, the core mystery, the original crime, it remained completely unsolved.
Right.
Atal was arrested, charged with 62 counts of animal cruelty and desecration. The town's purge was confirmed, but
not a single one of the cats that went missing on October 28th had returned.
there's been one. The 50-plus felines that vanished were still gone. The bodies in the attic were old trophies. The new victims were unaccounted for.
So the void was still there.
The void was still there, and the feeling of being watched was intensifying. Elias Ward, that same fisherman, he reported seeing a legion of shadows gathering near the seaside cliffs. Not animals, shadows.
I have to pause here because,
Yeah.
Wait, if the forensics showed he'd been collecting these trophies for decades, Doesn't that sort of undermine the idea that the big disappearance on October 28th was this sudden, singular event?
Ah, that is the perfect question. That is the precise conflict presented by the sources.
It's a contradiction.
It is. On one hand, you have Atal's long private history of malice, a slow burn of hatred. On the other hand, you have the disappearance, which was simultaneous, organized almost, military in its precision.
It suggests an external action.
Exactly. It highlights the possibility that the disappearance wasn't the crime itself, but the reaction. The final planned response from the other side of the covenant to a lifetime of abuse. It was a mobilization.
So the cats, their council, as the myths might say, they finally decided enough was enough. This ongoing violation needed a public, collective response.
That's the narrative the town adopted. And Atal himself, he seemed to confirm it.
What happened in court?
He was denied bail, obviously. And as they were leading him away, he stopped and he fixed this roomy old sailor's gaze on the court rafters. And he just muttered for everyone to hear.
They'll come for me now.
They'll come for me now. He knew. He knew he hadn't just violated a man-made law. He had broken the covenant and payment was due.
And that brings us directly and terrifyingly into the next phase. Vengeance from the shadows.
The climax of the story.
It happens just 2 days later, November 6th. Adal's prophecy, as you called it, it came true. He was discovered lifeless in his Essex County jail cell.
And this is the point where the official police report completely divorces itself from known reality.
Absolutely. The medical examiner's report on this is, it's truly one of the most baffling documents I've ever read.
Let's break it down. The cause of death was exsanguination. He had lost over 80% of his total blood volume.
Led to death. But how?
Through hundreds of minuscule lacerations. The report officially describes them as looking like needle pricks. Tiny, almost imperceptible wounds all over his body.
So a swarm of what?
Insects. Well, here's the thing. There was no forced entry into his cell. It was a high-security block. No toxins were found in his system. And the blood loss was somehow funneled out of his body and through the impossibly narrow ventilation slits in the cell door.
That's physically impossible.
The investigation could find no physical human mechanism for this death. It made no sense according to the laws of physics or biology.
And there's witness testimony, which is just as crucial here.
It's essential. Deputy Clara Voss was on duty that night. In her statement, she says she was roused from her desk at exactly 3:17 a.m. by a sound.
What kind of sound?
She called it an unearthly yowling. Not one cat, but a chorus. She said it didn't sound like they were in pain or fighting. It sounded like a chant.
And she saw them?
She went to the window and she distinctly recalled seeing a chorus of cats circling the building like they owned it.
Surrounding a high-security jail at the exact time of a scientifically impossible death inside.
The timing is highly incriminating if you accept the folklore as a valid framework.
And Atal's final act. He left a message.
He did. Here's his own confirmation of who or what his killer was, scrolled on the cell wall in his own blood.
His last words.
The elders. They feast.
The elders. The elder council from the myths.
The coroner, a local fixture named Elias Crow, he apparently just stood there in the cell, completely baffled. He struggled to fit the evidence, the massive blood loss through these tiny, tiny openings, into any known forensic category.
He had a quote in the paper, didn't he?
He did. He likened the attack to a vampire's kiss, but with paws.
Chilling. Just absolutely chilling.
And it doesn't end there. As the town is trying to process this impossible death, the second impossible event occurs.
The homecoming.
The homecoming. The sources describe it as a tidal wave of fur and fangs pouring out of the morning fog that was rolling in off the Tenerian coast.
This wasn't just the 50 missing pets returning.
No. This was something else entirely. It was a vast, impossible number of felines. Hundreds of them. Tabbies, jet black toms, tortoiseshells, cats of every description.
More cats than had ever lived in Ulthar.
Far more. And Harlan Fisk, the animal control director, he was there, and he noted their behavior. He said they were organized almost. Deliberate.
What did he mean by that?
They weren't acting like a feral colony. They showed no aggression. They weren't fighting. They moved with a single purpose, converging on the town in the silent, overwhelming wave. And they just stared. Their steady gaze fixed on the townspeople as if they were, in his words, judging.
Judging the town.
Judging them all.
And Yar, the boy who gave the tip, he was there.
He was, watching this silent, terrifying procession from Mrs. Atwood's front porch. And as this legion of cats reclaimed the town, he just murmured it, almost to himself.
The old law fulfilled.
The old law fulfilled. The debt was paid. The organized, deliberate nature of this massive feline return, it completely defied any rational, modern explanation of stray animal behavior. It was a statement.
Which leads us to the final phase of this saga, the aftermath, what the sources call the eternal truce.
Yes. The village now has to establish a new reality. They have to live with what they've seen. And they're forced to base that new reality entirely on this catastrophic, impossible convergence of crime and curse.
So legally, what happened with Otto's death?
Officially, the coroner's office and the state police had no choice. It was ruled undetermined, pending a wider forensic review that, of course, never went anywhere. There was nothing to review.
But the villagers, they had their verdict.
The villagers had already rendered theirs, absolutely, and they acted on it. The newly returned horde, which animal control estimated at around 200 souls, they didn't stay on the streets. They dispersed, walking right into Ulthar's home.
And the people just let them in.
They let them in. The atmosphere in the town changed overnight. The reports say villagers started having these strange shared dreams of starlit sails, a collective feeling of relief almost, a sense that the fog-bound air had finally been cleansed of a generational poison.
And then the investigation into Attal's life turned up something else, something that seemed to prove the curse theory correct.
Yeah, it did. This is the historical validation. Investigators were still combing through his belongings through that sea chest, and they unearthed more relics.
Including another broadsheet.
A much older one, dated 1789. And it was a public notice decrying the old man's kin, Attal's ancestors, for kitten culls, for killing cats.
So this wasn't just him, this was in his family, a generational conflict.
A generational affront. His family lineage was tied directly to Azorian whalers who had a tradition of killing cats for good luck on their ships. An ancient practice that was the very thing that likely gave rise to the 1793 bylaw in the first place.
Wow, so this wasn't just a random act of cruelty in 2025. This was the final battle in a centuries-long war between the allotted family line and the felines of Ulthar.
It seems that way. The evidence strongly suggests that his family's history is what directly caused the original ordinance to be written. It's truly cosmic checkmate. He was born into a feud he was destined to lose.
So what did the village do next? They had the body, the cats were back. What happens now?
They proceed with a ceremony, a public act that cemented their total acceptance of the lore over the law.
They dealt with the bodies from the attic.
Yes. The gruesome mummified trove from Attal's house was taken out to sea. It was cremated on a barge, and the ashes were scattered on the swells.
And the villagers, they treated it like a religious rite.
They did. They lined the cliffs to watch. They toasted the act. The sources say they called it a libation to Bastet.
Referencing the ancient Egyptian goddess of cats.
Exactly, showing just how deeply ingrained this idea of feline protection and even worship had become within the community's psyche. It wasn't just about a local rule anymore. It was about appeasing gods.
And the Mayor Peasley, he had to react to this. He couldn't just ignore it.
No, he couldn't. He was faced with this overwhelming local consensus and, a series of undeniable, if inexplicable, events, so he formalized the truce.
He turned it into legislative action.
He did. He penned a new ordinance, a modern one, that enshrined the concept of feline sanctuary in Ulthar. It even came with tax breaks for veterinary services and shelters. The folklore had been permanently etched into the municipal code.
So the law now reflects the myth.
The law is now in service to the myth. And on social media, the hashtag #UltharRevenge, it faded away.
Replaced by a new one.
#CatCovenant.
The Cat Covenant. Elias Ward, the fisherman, he had a final thought on the whole situation.
He did. He said, "They judged and found us wanton, but mercy's in their whiskers now."
And that's how the town lives today.
In what the sources call an uneasy idle, a truce. Villagers still deliberately leave their back doors ajar on windy nights, not just out of kindness anymore.
But out of fear or respect.
Both. They do it because, as the saying now goes in Ulthar, the cats remember.
So when you take all of this, when you synthesize these findings, what you have is this spectacular and I think unique case study.
Absolutely. The police work did its job right. It identified the human perpetrator of the decades-long atrocities. But the official legal and forensic system, it had to close the final, most important case, the murder of Menes Attal, with a shrug. With the word undetermined.
Because the means of death defied modern understanding.
It completely defied it. Meanwhile, the village, the community, they went in the opposite direction. Through this collective act of historical recognition, and then through new legislation, they adopted a resolution based entirely on the fulfillment of an ancient, deadly curse.
They chose the story that made sense of the impossible
I
facts.
did. And this raises, I think, a really important question for you, the listener, as you take all this in. What does this event truly reveal about the power of collective belief in a closed system in a place like Ulthar?
Right. Did the town's deep-seated paranoia and its violent history just provide the perfect conditions for a bizarre, deadly, self-fulfilling prophecy?
Or did the cats truly act as the elder council that young Nar and the other villagers believed them to be? Did they convene, pass judgment, and carry out a sentence?
The legal framework of Ulthar, the new town code, now suggests the latter is the official truth. The village didn't adopt the police's conclusion of "we don't know." They adopted the curse's conclusion of "justice was served."
Which leaves us with one final provocative thought for you to consider. Given the impossible forensics of Atal's death, his confession, the historical evidence, what debt beyond just milk and shelter did the village of Ulthar truly owe to their whiskered wardens to earn their continued mercy?
It seems that in Ulthar, the only way to achieve peace, the only way to ensure the fog lifts in the morning, is to honor the ancient and very violent terms of the covenant.